Whole lot more. We're going to welcome an adjunct professor at Montclair State University, Dan Geltrude. Okay, so Dan, investors pulling out of big tech despite the fact that NVIDIA beat its quarterly expectations. It's very interesting because we had Seth Denson on yesterday and he was kind of teasing everyone being quiet and waiting for what NVIDIA was going to come out with. So this is kind of, I guess, shocking to me a little bit. So the market, to say the least, has been very volatile this month. Do you think we'll see it stabilizing anytime soon?
Well, I think volatility is somewhat normal, particularly when you're following the market on a daily basis. You have to look at the stock market as a long-term play, and does it go up over time? And by and large, it always does. Now, what we're seeing in the markets now is its reliance upon technology. It seems wherever big tech goes, that's where the market follows. So when you talk about NVIDIA beat the revenue expectations, beat the earnings expectations, and yet the market ends up being disappointed. Yeah. Investors are disappointed, and it goes down. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And what I'll say about NVIDIA is this. They're not going anywhere. They're producing chips for AI. And AI is here to stay, and so is NVIDIA.
Yeah, Dan, I was very, very shocked to see the markets go down after NVIDIA came out with their earnings. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So Ford now joining the ranks of Tractor Supply, John Deere, and Lowe's, who we mentioned last week, in gutting all of its DEI initiatives. So the company joining the exodus after facing scrutiny from conservatives over the promotions of left-wing talking points. Dan, I'm actually shocked that that these companies, you think of John Deere, you think of kind of the South, you think of being on a farm. I'm from Georgia. I've seen a lot of it. Companies like that, I was shocked that they even had these DEI initiatives in the first place. So do you think more companies will follow suit?
They may very well do that. Look, just hire the most qualified people for the job. It's that simple. Because what's happening is people think DEI, then they start thinking affirmative action, then they start thinking about hiring quotas, which is not supposed to be. The best people get hired to do the job no matter who or what they are. And what's fueling this, I believe, is the Supreme Court decision related to college admissions, where they basically threw affirmative action out and said, listen, you have to let students in who meet the criteria academically and so on to be admitted, not, again, what or who they are.
Right. I mean, it makes total logical sense, Dan. So we just talked about people running away from DEI. However, shockingly, companies like Home Depot, for example, they are committed. They actually, if you go to their website, there's actually a tab for DEI. And then it came out yesterday, the Walt Disney Company is now hiring. They had a job posting for a DEI director. And on the posting, it says, quote, they want somebody to amplify DEI content. We know that's gone so far for Disney. They just had to cancel one of their Star Wars shows because it was so woke. It had so much diversity in it that people were like, hold on, wait a minute. We don't need this in our, just pushed at us through our children. Yet they're committed to it. So going back to Home Depot, the company last year allegedly stopped working with the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, an organization which promoted teaching kindergartners about different types of sexuality. Dan, companies like Disney, Home Depot, where do you see these companies headed, the ones that are really sticking with this DEI?
Well, they're putting themselves in a bind when there's really no reason to. When these corporations start to involve themselves in hot political issues, I don't see how you win. How about this? Focus in on building value for your shareholders. That's what you're supposed to be doing. When you start to veer off of that or go outside your lane, you're asking for trouble, and then what ends up happening is there's backlash, and who suffers? Ultimately, the shareholders. That's not what it's about. Just do the right thing, and you don't need all of this other stuff to guide you.
Again, Dan, such common sense. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thanks, Alex.